I hope
Okay.
you're ready. So, very special guest. Supposed to be two very special guests, but right now we're having technical difficulties from one of our guests. A little bit of an echo, so he's trying to find some headphones to help us out. So, for those listening, not able to read your name, who are you?
I am Jenna Malloy.
How long have you been at Gateway? What do you do for a living? Why does your
Uh,
last name look so familiar to people from County Road 9?
so Sean is my husband. He does the music at County Road 9. We have been a part of Gateway since 2007, soon after we got married, and I am a teacher for a living. So I currently teach kindergarten at Whittier Primary in Findlay City Schools.
And you've been teaching for how long?
I think this is my 16th year.
16th year. And is this year 2 or 3 kindergarten? I can't
Year
remember.
3 should be the best year I've heard. They say after like in your third year, then you've got it. Like your first year's rough doing something new, and second year you're learning better. And so we'll see.
Well, I and Emily, my wife, have been with you for the first 2 years. So we're hoping that this one will be a good one as well. For those who don't know, the Malloys and the Hansons are in a life group together. Real quick, while we're still waiting on Ian to figure out his audio, a couple of things coming up. November 5th, a week from today, as we're recording, evening communion service at 6 p.m. here at County Road 9. Believers' baptisms, infant baptisms, child dedications, communion. I think that covers everything. Anything particular that you would like to say to people to encourage them if they've never come to an evening communion service as a congregant member?
Oh, if they've never come, I don't know. I think it's just a beautiful time with church. I think it's a really cool thing that we have County Road 9 and North Main and combine. And I don't know, maybe it's the female emotions in me, but I often cry during baptisms. I just think just knowing the picture of like what life you're giving up and what life you're hoping to come into. And I think, we're called to be a part in fellowship. So I think, yeah, I don't know. It's a good time.
And that was all good. If that did not move you, in our November baptism services, usually there's cake afterwards. And so if the emotions that Jenna described don't move you, but cake would. Last year, there was tons of cake. We only do it for the fall baptisms because spring is on Easter. And so most people are wanting to get to Easter lunch. So that, and then the other thing to announce is no podcast for the next 2 weeks because we have the evening communion service at the same time as when we normally go live here. And then the next week will also be on hiatus, but we will be back on, I believe it's November 19th, where we will talk about why we were on a second week hiatus, but more to come about that.
Did you already say no youth group too?
No, that's a good call. No youth group because of the evening communion service, but they will be back on the 12th, I believe. And I have been seeing as a parent of a youth that there is some sort of, is it hockey? Have you been seeing these things?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a hockey
I think
trip
it's
that they're
November
going to do.
14th.
There you go. That's a good
November
mom.
14th is the last day to sign up, but it's the 17th, Friday the 17th.
That's a good mom and a good teacher.
Haven't signed going up yet, but we have a friend who's signed up, so we need to get him signed up.
Ian, are you good? Give me a thumbs up if you think you're good. You have to put your thumb like, no, not good yet. All right. You keep working on it. We'll figure this out. We'll get you on. So Laura's out of town. She's on a sister trip. She has a sister that lives nearby in Lima and then another sister who is in North Carolina. And so they decided to all meet up in Knoxville. And so I'm flying solo here, trying to do Laura's part and my part. So nothing's probably going to get posted in the chats. Hey, Mike. Hey, look at this. Mike says, hey, good to see you. Do you think that's a goose flying in his picture there? They're flying south now, especially after this. Ian, you want us to give you a shot?
Let's try it.
Let's see.
Hey,
no echo.
There we go.
All right.
Dun.
So Jenna Malloy,
Hey, Jenna.
member
Hi,
here
Ian.
at Gateway, wife of one of our staff members. Ian, who are you, and how do we know each other?
So my name is Ian Ferguson. I am a pastor over at Paulding First Presbyterian Church in Paulding, Ohio. We know each other because we're both EPC pastors in the same cluster. About once a month, I head over to Findlay and we hang out, talk about books and ministry. And I try to soak up as much wisdom from you seasoned pastors and just having a good time over in Paulding.
Yeah, Ian's a great guy. He is, in my mind, the ultimate optimist. Like, life is good. And I just love that, because in ministry, you need to have the hope of the gospel, an optimistic outlook. And he's just always, he never has a bad day. And you may have bad days, but when we meet together with the 5 or 6 of us, you're not the guy that's had a bad day. You're always an encouragement.
I'm always blessed. Thank God that I really haven't had to deal with a lot of the heartaches of ministry. Family's doing well, life's doing well. So I don't know what I would complain about. It's been great.
And how long have you been at Paulding?
6 years.
6 years. And was that when you were ordained?
Yes.
Okay, because I don't think that I came to your ordination. I know I came to Jeremy, who is one of the other pastors who meets monthly here, but I don't think I made it to yours. I just can't remember all the guys when they come in and get ordained. And
no, you didn't.
Fun fact, Jenna, Ian's dad is an EPC pastor.
Well, I was just going to ask, you said your last name is Ferguson. Are you related to any Fergusons here in Findlay?
There's not in Findlay.
Okay.
My dad's go ahead, Jenna.
Sorry. I was just going to say there's a pastor here in Findlay with the last name of Ferguson, and I don't even know what denomination, movement, church is. Maybe Josh knows, but
yeah, I think it's non-denominational. I'm not sure though. Yeah.
But their daughter is in my kindergarten class. So I just was curious. That's not a normal, typical last name, but yeah.
You're from Illinois originally? Is that where your dad?
Yes, I'll now proudly say Southern Illinois, even though growing up, people would ask if I'm from Southern Illinois, and I'd say, no. But yeah, Southern Illinois, small town. My dad's still there, Hillsboro.
There you go. Well, I know that is fun to see when sons, follow in their father's footsteps, especially in ministry, because as a pastor's kid, you see the good, bad, and the ugly of church life. And so for you to step into ministry as well must mean that he and your mom have done a good job of showing you the value and the importance of the church and the people of God, in spite of all of our many flaws. And so, again, Ian, you're always an encouragement. You two very special guests are here because of this book, The Bruised Reed by Richard Sibbes. Now, Ian and I first started reading this book together as part of this little cluster, these 6 pastors who get together from Northwest Ohio. And we're doing about a chapter a week or so. And then, do you remember when our small group started it, Jenna, maybe 3 or 4 months ago?
Yeah, it's been a while. I had to actually go back and try to re-listen to some of the first chapters because I feel like it's been a long time.
Yeah, and so we started after, I know the pastor started, and it was on my mind, and Laura was reading it, and so we thought at some point in time we would do this. But in our small group, there was just a few different instances. There was another lady who was in our group as well, and just a couple of the different group members had family situations going on. There was fostering and adoption situations going on, just a lot of toughness and heaviness. And I happened to bring up, hey guys, there's this book that I'm reading that may just be good for all of our souls at this moment. And so Ian and I, we're the pastor nerds. And so reading old books are kind of like what we do. We have them on our shelves. Jenna, you had to go back months ago. Do you remember your first thought when you're sitting in small group and the idea was we're going to read a book from a few hundred years ago? Was it?
I don't feel like it was pitched like that. Was it? Was it pitched that way?
How was it pitched?
I don't remember, but I don't remember it being pitched as this is an author who's been passed away for a long time. Like, I don't feel like I remember learning that until we were into the study. I don't feel like, because
okay.
the previous study too that we did was also by an author from a couple hundred years ago, correct? The previous book that we studied.
No, he would be 20th century because he was alive during World War II.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we've had two authors who are passed away.
Older. Yeah.
Yes.
Older. So we went from kind of old
to like really,
really old.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and so we started this. Now the small group has finished. The pastors have not. And so we showed those academics what's up, right, Jenna? And
yep, sure.
And so what I thought, so that's why we're discussing this book today. Both this pastors group that I'm a part of and my life group have been reading it. In case you're wondering, the title, The Bruised Reed, comes from a verse, Isaiah 42:3, a bruised reed he will not break, and a faintly burning wick he will not quench. And so based off of that and much more of scripture, Richard Sibbes, a Puritan, wrote all of this book. If I was going to ask you guys before we get to the questions I prepped you with, like, who would this book be good for? I kind of mentioned it already, some stuff going on in our small group, but you've gone through it now. Who would it be good for? Because we don't like to read old books. You have to kind of work up that the barrier in language. But now on this side of it, who would you say, hey, you would benefit from dabbling in the Bruised Reed?
Would you like to go first, Jenna?
You can.
My first response would be any Christian could pull some great encouragement from the book. But I think that if you are someone who is willing and has the time to dig in and to read a paragraph maybe a couple times and digest it, if you have that kind of patience, any Christian, I think, could approach the book and get something out of it. Maybe even high school age and older. I wouldn't use it as a book to, there's some books that we read to our kids. It wouldn't be something like that, but almost any Christian, I would think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that for me, who I'm not a pastor nerd, I think reading it with my life group was good, because then I think hearing other people's bits of wisdom, what they saw and how they kind of could apply different things to their life was helpful for me as well. There were parts that I did have to reread and then think of, what is he meaning here? Or what is this word that maybe he's using that we don't hear very often now in the 20th century? And then, just trying to apply it to now. But I think it is applicable. So I think it could be for, anyone. Anyone who obviously, like you said, Josh, too, like just going through those tough seasons and, or if you've been through those tough seasons, I think it's encouraging. But I also think if you haven't been through tough seasons, I think it's good maybe to prepare, because we know that, it's not going to be easy to be a Christian. So I think for anyone.
Yeah. My list is, if you're weary, if you're feeling defeated in life, if you're in need of encouragement, you will read through some stuff that'll, again, maybe take 2 or 3 readings to understand, but there are some nuggets in here that in one reading, you will be like, I wish we talked like this more, because this is encouraging. And so just know that there's just a list of quotes. In fact, one of my sermons was from a title from I titled it from a quote from this book recently in our Finding Jesus series. And so lots of good stuff in here. So there you go.
Yeah.
Some older English kind of language. Sometimes you have to realize that our definition of a word isn't the definition that he was using a few hundred years ago, but it's not insurmountable. You will be able to do it. And there is, I haven't read it, but there supposedly is like a modern version translation of this. And so maybe that might be helpful. I don't know what might be taken out of the original poetic kind of language with that, but if it seems a little bit too intimidating, maybe give that a try. All right. So Jenna, we'll start with you. What surprised you the most about this book or in this book?
Oh, so when you sent that question, I really didn't know how to answer that one. Surprised me the most. I mean, besides the language, but when you know who wrote it, I think that probably shouldn't have been surprising. But I guess maybe the encouragement that could be found within this book. I know you just used the word nuggets. I think there was a lot of just good, even if it was just a sentence or two each chapter that were just, they just hit home like so hard. Just little bits of truth that you just feel like, wow, I knew that, or I've heard that before, but it's never been said that way. Or yeah, like you said too, we just don't talk like that. So maybe just the language and encouragement that could be found in this, probably.
Great. Ian, what about you? Something that surprised you?
Yeah, first I'd agree with Jenna. Some great quotes and surprising quotes. Sometimes I was surprised he just goes all in on the little sentences, illustrations that he uses. Page 10, he talks about Satan sets upon us whenever we are weakest, as Simeon and Levi upon the Shechemites whenever they were sore. And I was like, man, he's going all in on those illustrations. Of course, Genesis 34 about whenever Jacob's sons are taking advantage of their enemies who have captured their sister. And it's a bit of a graphic illustration, but he's not shy about it. I mean, it was surprising. Just he goes all in on just great illustrations. But other than that, I would say the fact that he had a very rich tone of mercy, but it was without being spineless. Whenever I was growing up, early college years, I read a lot of books like No More Christian Nice Guy, or Jesus Mean and Wild, or some books by Mark Driscoll. And I remember kind of the strength in a lot of that writing, but often it lacked that merciful tone. And it seemed really one-sided. And I've read other books that have that merciful tone, like maybe top of my mind, maybe like something like Blue Like Jazz or something like that, which has a lot of like an inviting, merciful tone, but it lacked sometimes a spine. And so I thought it was a great balance between having great words of comfort and mercy, but also having great words of correction and about duty. And so he striked the balance, I thought, perfectly, talking about how that spark that is in us is a spark that God put in and he wouldn't forsake, and how precious that is to God. But also say things like a hard knot of like somebody who's really rebelling against God, who has a twisted up heart against God. A hard knot must always have an answerable wedge, else in a cruel pity we betray their souls. And these ideas of sometimes, I think there's another quote about how sometimes the people that demand mercy the most are the people that should really have a bit of severity towards them. And I think it was a perfect balance, and that surprised me because I was expecting maybe overdone mercy and there would be something missing there, but great balance.
Yeah, I think what surprised me most is staying with the encouragement theme, the amount of biblical encouragement, which is true encouragement, because sometimes encouragement can be shallow. It's just earthly. But the amount of biblical encouragement that can be crammed to such a small book. Like,
Yeah.
here are some quotes that I grabbed on this idea. He, God, will not only not break nor quench, but he will cherish those whom he so deals. That the thinking of God cherishing us was a great encouragement to me. Later on, there is more mercy in Christ than sin in us. And for some people, I think that we can view God as being always unhappy with us, as being a stern father instead of a loving father. They sometimes impose his side that is reserved for the unrepentant towards them, even though they are repentant. And so almost giving their sin more credit than it's due, like, no, give his mercy towards you some credit right now. I appreciated that. And then this one, let us not be cruel to ourselves when Christ is thus gracious. That there, for some people that we minister to, some need to be maybe a little bit more harder on themselves and a little less gracious. But I tend to find that it's more of the people that we find in the church being harder on themselves and not really realizing and resting in how gracious Christ is towards them. And I think that gets into why people are trying to almost earn their relationship after they say, oh, it's all grace, but now I need to keep earning this relationship. That it's sort of this view of an impossible work to accomplish, obviously. And so I appreciated those quotes. Anything else in surprise now that we talked about this a little bit? If not, we can go on to next question.
One of my favorite quotes, I think, came from chapter 2.
Okay.
It said, "It is better to go bruised to heaven than whole to hell." So I'm just thinking of that picture, like, we're going to be bruised. Like, this is a life that, again, is not going to be easy. And that's not the point, but like, I don't know. And then just, again, that picture that I know you both have touched on, but just God does not quench the smoking flax. Like, I loved in chapter 4 when he talked about because the spark is from heaven. And I feel like maybe Ian touched on that earlier, but it's from God. So, like, even if it's just smoking, there's still something there, and God's going to use that. And just kind of felt like there are days where I feel exhausted and like I'm never doing enough as a mom, as a teacher, as a wife. But you just know that, like, that spark is still there, and it's from God. Even if it's just a little bit of smoke, maybe God's going to add a little bit of air to it. It'll create, a flame of some sort. And he said too, like, a flame, it doesn't matter the size, like it's still from God. Like, that's still there. It just was really encouraging. So yeah.
Thank you for that. What's a key takeaway that you would want everyone to know, either from the book or of reading the book? What's a key takeaway?
Would you like to go first, Jenna?
I can, unless you have something ready.
I have something ready. I had to think about it for a while, about how I would articulate it. And this is what I ended up jotting down. That the bruising and spark within you are a work of God. So do not be complacent in victory or despair in your corruption, but approach God boldly in your weakness. And I think it's that balance that I think that he just so rightly puts of not having complacency in victory, not despairing in your corruption. God's still working. And so we can approach God boldly. I think that is an encouragement to me, definitely. And it's an encouragement for me, not only for my own life and how God is dealing with me, despite my sparks and bruising and everything, but I think that it's an encouragement as I deal with other people. Before I came on this. Whenever Josh invited me, I went back to another podcast and I thought, what are these all about? And so I went back and I listened to another one, and you guys were talking about a book called Thanks for the Feedback. And I said, that's a great book. And I went back and I read it. And one of the things it talked about in that book was in dealing with people, how it encouraged you to say, hey, you need to really have that compassion and mercy for others. And you need to develop that. That's really important. But it didn't really give any direction on how to do that. And I felt like a book like this book we're talking about is how you do that. In life, just to be a functional person, you need to have that mercy, compassion component. And I feel like this book is a great re-energizer for me to be able to develop those things that other skills require, to experience God's mercy and compassion in my own life and remind myself of that so that I can have it for others. And so that's, if someone's looking for a way to develop that in their life, I felt like that's what this book did for me, and I would recommend it to others. And so that would be my takeaway.
Something you said there, Ian, reminds me of one of my life resolutions. It is, do not despise your weakness or the weakness of others. Instead, fear the delusion of independent strength. And you're just talking about this, how it gives you a way to view your weakness, to view your bruising. I don't remember if that's original to me or if I read that somewhere, but that's the resolution that came to my mind when you were saying that, we can so despise our weaknesses, and especially the weaknesses of others. Boy, can you be good at spotting how others are weak. But fearing this, and it's really a delusion that we're strong on our own. That gets you to where you're not getting the you're getting the Father who's going to put you back in your place when you're in that spot. Jenna, what about you? That was a great takeaway, Ian. Takeaway you would want everyone to know?
Can it be like just an encouragement to read the book?
Absolutely.
Okay, so my takeaway is kind of knowing friends that, obviously go to Gateway, who we hope are listening to the podcast. I'm thinking from our previous life group that we were a part of for many, many years. I know I was not the only one, but there were several that felt like, things were hard for us to understand. We just didn't have like that mind that we had to like work really hard to sometimes understand and wrestle with things. So I've learned over the past year or two, especially in my own job, but like we grow in those stretching years, the things that seem hard. So I think books that seem like they're going to be really hard to understand, that's where we can grow. But I think it came within that community. Like if I think I was trying to read this on my own, I probably wouldn't have been as disciplined to read it or to finish it maybe. But I think within that life group that group, you're you kind of have that accountability of reading it and reading it so that you can discuss things. But I think just reading it would be my big takeaway, trying to get out of maybe your comfort zone of books or studies or something that maybe is, just kind of surface level or easy, the things that we always kind of go to, but this is probably a little bit deeper maybe than some people are used to, a bit more challenging. You have to dig a little bit, into the language and into the, just lots of things. But I think there were just so many good points that it was so encouraging that I think that would be my big takeaway, is just encouraging people to read it.
And I know for both of these groups that I'm a part of, that even if you read the chapter and you didn't get it at all, because you're doing it with others, you would not have wasted time and then sitting with them for an hour or an hour and a half and hearing what they got out of it. Because somebody will get something out of it and you're like, oh, I get it now. I get why this is important. And so, and again, these two groups for me are very, very different. of just what we discuss. We're coming from an angle as pastors, an angle as friends in a life group. Some of the pastors, they'll come with, 2 pages of notes of an outline of the chapter that they're reading. Over here, it's like, hey, what do you guys have? And babies are wandering around, and so it's just very different atmospheres. But Jenna, it's as if you basically read my outline for tonight and stole all of my stuff. What surprised you the most? You talked about encouragement. Key takeaway, I thought that I was going to take it a different angle. And my key takeaway for everybody is to read an old book. There are brothers and sisters in Christ who came long before us. You stand on their shoulders and you don't even know it. But there is lots of encouragement and refreshment for your soul and your spirit by opening up some of these old books. If you don't know where to begin.
Can I add one more thing?
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I know I wasn't the only one in our life group that did this either, but I had an app, like our Hancock County Public Library app. So I could listen to it like an audiobook. So listening to it also with reading it was super helpful because, I think sometimes my brain as a mom, I feel like I'm ADD sometimes, like I'm pinging everywhere and trying to think of keeping all the schedules straight and all the things for work that I need to remember. But I think listening to it also probably was helpful. Hearing someone else say the words, I don't know, was just really helpful. So I think for some of us, if you think it's really hard to sit and read, like I could be washing the dishes and listening to it. And then I would go back because the chapters are short too, which is also a good plug. That was, you could kind of digest it over the course of a week by listening to it and then reading it and then, that kind of thing. So,
yeah.
And so they don't take me long. Yeah. And I listened to it a little bit faster than just like the 1.0 speed. It was like 1.5, or I think, Josh, you're like a speed listener. I think when we've talked about that before, but
yeah, like 1.5 is normally, if it's fiction, I can listen faster than that, but nonfiction 1.5. But just so you know, like 7 pages for a chapter and the font is big and the space is wide. Ian, you're going to say something? Sorry.
No, I totally agree. It's probably at least from my book, 5 pages for a chapter, and they're probably half a page, like half of an 8x11 page. So,
and if you don't know where to find good old books, if you just search for Puritan paperbacks, it will probably take you to Banner of Truth. I don't know if it's .com, .org, whatever it is, but on there, they have Puritans from around the same time period, their books there, and they're ranked by popularity. And I'm pretty sure that this one is, if not at the top of the list, right near the top of the list. And so in readability and the encouragement, all of that. And so that's a good place to start. And again, both the Hoopla app, I'm not sure about the Libby app. Did you use Hoopla?
Was that the Hancock County one?
Yeah.
I have both. I think, it was Hoopla.
Yeah.
I don't think Libby had it.
Yeah.
I think I looked it up there.
So if you don't know that, if you have a library card, you can get audio books, music, all kinds of stuff for free there. Just check it out. And you would check it out on your library card. And so, hey guys, that is it. So look at this. Pastors can read this book. Non-pastors can read this book. Small groups can read this book. If you are, again, in need of encouragement, which means you are breathing, this would be a good book. And if you want to be an encouragement for others, there are some great lines that you can steal. He's with the Lord now. He'll say, that's fine. You do it. Just take that line and make it yours, because there are, again, just some great quotes that you may have with you for the rest of your life, with the way that he describes the Christian journey here. So, hey guys, thanks for being here with us. Ian, first time podcaster with us.
What?
Yeah, there you go. Jenna, first time.
First time as well.
Yay.
First time as well. Ian, her husband, does a lot of the podcast, the stories episodes. He was a regular, and then we said, hey, tell some stories. And so he does that on his own.
Awesome.
And so, so he's a regular on the podcast. She's actually in his office right now. That's all the guitars in the background.
It's nice to meet you, Jenna.
Quieter than at home. I didn't know if our dog would be barking or you know, so, and needed to drop Cohen off for youth group. So I thought we'll just steal his office. No one's here. So
There you go. Well,
Yeah.
thanks again, guys.
yeah.
Thanks, Josh.